Gentlemen, let me ask you something. And this is a question that you don't really give a quick answer to. I really want you to think about this one. And that is, if life were to break you tomorrow, and by break, I mean not bent you, not stress you out. If life actually broke you tomorrow, who's the man that you have in your life that would actually sit with you? Not try to fix all of your problems, not try to distract you, not joke it away, but the man in your life that will actually help you carry the weight of that burden. And here's the even harder question for you. Are you that man for anybody else? Today, on another great episode of Notes to the Sun, we're going to be talking about something that many of us as men, especially African American men, were never taught to build in our life, and that is care circles. A circle of men who are responsible for our mental, physical, and spiritual well being. I'm your host, KGB. Let's chop it up. Before we begin, let me just give a quick shout out to all of you who follow Notes to the Sun. Your support is greatly appreciated. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, please like, subscribe, and comment, and share this information with anyone who you believe needs to hear it. As men, especially as Black men, many of us were taught to survive, but very few of us were actually taught to be supported, to be held. So many of us don't have deep friendships. What we have are shared spaces, areas where we work, areas where we watch sports, areas where we get our haircuts, areas where we are participants in group chats, but very few places where we can actually be known and reveal our true selves. So if we're not building care circles, friend groups that are meant to spiritually, physically, and mentally heal us, what in the world are we actually building? Well, I'll tell you what we're doing. We're building friendships around convenience, not care. We're building friendships around noise, around distraction, around passing time, but nothing about healing. We know how to dap each other up, but we don't know how to check in on each other. So now, guess what? You got men all the time in rooms full of people, but still feeling alone. What we are in is not friendships. What we're actually in are alliances of distraction. And the scariest part is what few healthy friendships that we actually have, those are starting to shrink. Researchers are starting to confirm what a lot of us actually feel, that men's social circles are actually shrinking. Men are starting to have fewer close relationships, less emotional connection, and more isolation. According to the Survey Center on American Life, men's social circles have been shrinking since 1990. In a survey that was done back then, 3% of all men reported that they had no close friends. Fast forward to 2021, some 30 years later, 15% of all men reported that they actually have no close friends. What's even worse is back in 1990, 55% of all men surveyed claimed that they actually have six or more close friends. As recent as 2021, only 27% of all men surveyed said that they have at least six close friends. That is half of what was reported some 30 years ago. So it doesn't help that our relationships and our friendships are already based upon distraction and noise. What makes it even worse is what little friendships we do have are shrinking. You may think that the solution is really easy, right? Just go out and find more friends. But the hard truth is this: not every friendship is healthy. Let's break it down. If we are honest, some of our friendships, if we're honest, are actually killing us. Not all at once, but slowly. These are the ones that normalize our worst habits. Nobody corrects you, nobody challenges you, everybody just agrees. It's the circle that laughs at your pain instead of asking you about it. It's the circle that feeds your worst habits instead of correcting them. It is the circle that stays silent when you are clearly not okay. Everything stays on the surface: jokes, sports, women, money, but never your fears, your struggles, or your healing. Everything becomes competition, right? Who's winning, who's losing, who's got more. And eventually you start performing instead of growing. If your circle disappears when you're struggling, but shows up when you're celebrating, that's not brotherhood. That is convenience. And it's not loyalty, brothers. It's neglect wearing a smile. So we need something different. Not more friends, not more group chats, not more people to laugh with. We need men who are committed to each other's well being, mind, body, spirit. Men who will actually ask a second question. Nah, dog, how are you really doing? What we don't say out loud enough is that there are clear differences in how men and women build relationships. And to drive this point home, I want to talk about a personal situation that came up in my life roughly about maybe 10, 15 years ago. My wife and I, we got into this huge argument. You know, the kind of argument where two people agree that they can't be underneath the same roof without somebody dying. It was one of those arguments. So my wife, she actually decided that she was going to go to a friend's house for a minute to cool down. I, on the other hand, I decided to stay home. Well, when my wife got to her friend's house, she was greeted by two other friends. So they had all kind of called each other up and said, "Hey, we need to be there for Tina." And so when she got there, they started to console her, they started to comfort her, and they started to give her advice about what the next step should be in my marriage. Now, me, on the other hand, I only consulted four friends, and those were the four walls of my bedroom. I basically bounced a bunch of crazy ass ideas off of those four walls, and every single one of them agreed with me that she was wrong, I was right, and I had a right to be fucking frustrated and angry. So, for the greater part of the day, I sat there drowning in my anger. I was being controlled strictly by my emotion, the lower parts of my brain, the limbic system. Now, on the other hand, my wife was actually amongst friends, sharing, more importantly, talking, utilizing her language skills, utilizing the prefrontal cortex, utilizing the left hemisphere of the brain, utilizing the higher areas of the brain. So when she walked out of that meeting with her friends, she had an analytical, an intellectual, a rational understanding of our problem, and solutions to support it. Me, on the other hand, all that I had was just my anger. So when she came home, she was calm, she was polite, she was loving, she was soft spoken, and that shit pissed me off. How dare she? How dare she walk away and come back feeling calm when I had all of these reasons to be angry? But not only was she calm, but she began to map out for us the next steps in our marriage. I, on the other hand, I was in no position to do that. She was the only one of us that was actually in a position to be able to talk about what do we do next for what's best for our children, for her, and for me. If my wife had not had those group of individuals to talk with, our marriage would have actually failed because the only thing that I was thinking was scorched earth, whereas the only thing she was thinking about was tomorrow. I'm not saying that one type of friendship is better than another. What I'm saying is that there are lessons that we men can actually learn from how women build their friendships. You see, women often build friendships or their relationships around an emotional connection, talking, sharing, processing. Men, on the other hand, we build our relationships around activities, doing things together, being in the same space. Have you ever seen women, like when they go out with each other, how they engage and interact with one another? They often have face to face engagement. They are actually doing things where they can actually look at one another and engage one another by seeing each other. Men, on the other hand, we engage in activities where we sit side by side with one another. We're at a sports bar watching a television. We're at a sporting event watching a game. We're in a golf cart side by side with one another, just driving around. It is rare that we actually engage one another in a way where we can be seen. But not only do we engage each other differently, but when we're actually together, we also discuss different things. According to a 2023 survey by the Pew Research Center, 67% of women stated that when they are with their friends, they talk about family. Compare that to only 47% of men. As a matter of fact, 53% of men said that they talk about current events. That's more than they actually talk about their families when they're amongst their friends. 31% of women state that when they are with their friend groups, they talk about mental health. Compare that to only 15% of men. Men, when we interact with one another, we typically talk about pop culture, television shows, current events, and sports. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But one problem arises when we actually need emotional support, it's not there. You see, women, the nature of their friendship is such that they actually have emotional support systems in place. But when we hit rock bottom and when we are broken, we have nothing in place. All we have is a bunch of brothers that we hang with, ill prepared individuals to carry the weight of the problems that we are currently dealing with, ill prepared individuals to actually provide us with mental, spiritual, and physical support. Man, I got into a lot of trouble a couple of episodes ago when I said that women cannot be the best friends of their significant others, their male significant others. Man, I got so many. What do you mean? My wife is my best friend. What do you mean? Me and my husband? Stop. Stop it. Studies have shown that what you wish to discuss, women, is not what men wish to discuss when we are trying to seek peace, when we are trying to seek an outlet. They are not the same. When you are amongst your friends, you want to talk about family, you want to talk about work. That's not the shit we want to talk about. We actually want to get away from that stuff. We want distractions. We want things that are going to get all the stress and pressures off of our mind. So when we are trying to relax and you come walking in wanting to be our best friend, talking about things that are not going to relax us, you are compounding the problem. You are not helping it. The best thing that you can do, rather than try to implement yourself or implant yourself in a man's friend circle, what you should be doing is being the architect of his care circle. Help identify the men in his life that are going to mentally, physically, and spiritually support him. Help him audit his friend circle. Look at those individuals that are just there out of convenience, the individuals that are just there out of familiarity, but they actually bring nothing positive to the table. Help him identify men that might be on the periphery of his life that should be invited in to be closer because they actually bring something useful, something healthy into his life. You need to be the architect of his care circle because studies have shown that when men form deep, emotionally connected friendships with other men, it significantly improves their mental health, it reduces depression, and it even lowers the risk of harmful behaviors. Behaviors that you as a woman should want a man to avoid if you are going to have a healthy and faithful marriage. So I want to introduce a new idea for men, something that we need to start building intentionally: care circles. And a care circle is simply a group of men who are committed to the mental, physical, and spiritual well being of one another. Now, what makes this different? is this isn't going to be about who you grew up with. This isn't going to be about who's been around the longest. This is going to be about who is committed to your growth. Your care circle needs to be intentional, not accidental. It needs to be honest, not performative. It needs to be supportive, not silent, and accountable, not enabling. You see, a care circle doesn't just ask how you're doing, it helps you become who you are supposed to be. So, how do you build your care circle? Well, the first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to have to do the hard part, the difficult part of auditing your existing friendships. You're going to have to be honest with yourself. You're going to have to ask yourself who actually checks in on you, right? Who challenges you, and who amongst your friends actually makes you better. And once you start looking at those friendships that could be a part of your care circle, then you start recruiting, right? And what you're going to do is you're going to find two, maybe three individuals at the start, not perfect men, but present men who aren't afraid to give you the truth. And men who don't run from yours. You need to find men who you can be vulnerable around, honest around, and even cry around if necessary. And once you've identified these two, three individuals, then I want you to also add a few more to your care circle. I need you to have a therapist in your care circle. I need you to have a spiritual guide in your care circle, a pastor, a priest, rabbi, imam, whatever. And then you also need to have someone who is an expert on physical health or nutrition. So once you've identified two or three individuals that are either in the center of your life or on the periphery of your life that you can share with, that you can be vulnerable with, that you know will support you, then you need to bring into your care circle an additional two, three individuals who are professionals and they are actually able to guide you professionally through mental, spiritual, and physical well being. And then step three is setting the standards for that care circle. Basically, we're not here to fuck around. All right. We're here to grow. And then the next step is step four, right? And step four is you need to create a structure by which your care circle will operate. How often do you check in with one another? You create group chats that the purpose of which is to provide care and support and advice to brothers who are actually in need. And that you commit yourself to have conversations beyond surface talk. So rather than calling each other up and talking about the latest playoff games, you're calling each other up to see how you're doing. Are you okay? How are the kids? How are the family? What's your mood been like these days? What are you doing these days to find your peace? How's the marriage going? These are the kind of conversations that individuals must have in your care circle. And then the last thing, step five, is normalize depth. If you could talk about sports for 2 hours, surely you could talk about your life for at least 20 minutes, okay? Commit to your own health, commit to your own well being. Set aside some time where you are actually hanging with brothers and being able to talk to them with a level of depth that will be able to provide you with the emotional support that you need to keep on going. In 2015, I was at a party and I was surrounded by some of the greatest minds, some of the best black men that I'd ever had the opportunity of knowing personally. I mean, these were good brothers, good fathers. And we were just shooting the shit, slapping dominoes, doing what we do, talking about sports, drinking, all that kind of stuff. And then it dawned upon me, I said, while I have some of the brightest minds that I had ever come into contact with surrounding me almost every single month, just getting together just to hang, none of us were actually benefiting from each other's presence. So I got a group of brothers together and we decided that we were going to put together our own care circle. This was over 10 years ago. And so what we decided to do is that we decided to incorporate and create an investment group. And the whole purpose of this investment group was that we would be able to pool our resources together so that we can bring peace into our lives and ultimately into the lives of our families. And so since then, we meet every 3 months and we do things that are actually going to bring peace and happiness into our lives. Every 3 months, we go to spas, we get massages, we golf, we travel, we do all sorts of activities that will allow us to keep on fighting the good fight. And since then, over the last decade, we've invested in a number of things. We've generated just a small amount of wealth. In addition to that, we traveled half of the world and we plan on traveling through the other half. But we've been doing quite well. But more importantly, when I hit rock bottom, when I was at my lowest point a couple of years ago, these were the brothers that picked me up. These were the brothers that I was able to cry in front of. These were the brothers that took me to a whole nother country and said, we gonna talk this shit out. These are the men that have been there for me. They check in on me. They call me regularly. Kafra, how you doing? Are you okay? You need to work on this. You need to do this. You need to see the world this way, brother. These are my care circle. And I wouldn't give them up for the world because without them, I wouldn't be here. Facts. Fathers listening, the way that you model your friendships is the way your sons will build theirs. If they only see you joke, avoid, and stay on the surface level, they'll do the same. And for every man listening, ask yourself, if I fall, who will catch me? And if that answer to you right now is unclear, then it is time for you to start building differently because you don't need more friends. You need better brothers because healing does not happen in isolation. It happens in community. I want to give a special shout out to Emmett Waite, Shamari Davis, Talib Davis, Elliot Limbrick, and Chris Hamlin. Because of you, Kafra is still here. Today's note is real simple. Build the circle that will carry you and be the man that carries others. Take care.